Hi, everybody, and welcome to this week's weekly intelligence insights brief from At Risk International's Global Risk Intelligence team. I'm Ross Hill, Director of Intelligence, and kicking us off this week is one of our protective intelligence analysts, Roman Fisher.
Thanks, Ross. Good morning, everybody. Last week, New York's Governor Kathy Hochul had declared a state disaster emergency after the polio virus was found in more wastewater. Hochul stated last week that that New York will be increasing its polio fighting efforts as the virus was detected in the wastewater of another county in the New York City area. The polio virus was previously detected in wastewater in New York City and in Rockland, Orange, and Sullivan counties. Health officials began testing for the virus in sewage water after the first case of polio here in the U.S. in nearly a decade was identified in Rockland County. The most recent discovery of the virus came from a wastewater sample collected last month in Long Island. Health officials in New York are suggesting that residents should get immunized. They also said that it is possible that hundreds of people in the state have gotten the polio virus and don't know it, and that most people infected with polio show no symptoms but can still spread the virus. Considering the recent COVID pandemic, some are questioning if the reemergence of polio is possible. Although polio still occasionally impacts part of the world, a recent article published by the Yale School of Medicine states that a reemergence is highly unlikely. The article goes on to state that the U.S. is only seeing a vaccine-derived polio virus, and that the wild type of the virus has recently only been seen in Pakistan, Afghanistan, Mozambique, and Malawi. That's what I have for you this week, so I will pass it back over to you, Ross. Thank you.
Thanks, Roman. So update on Ukraine. Ukraine's armed forces have retaken more than 3,000 square kilometers of territory in about the last 11 days or so, but most of that has been taken in around about the last 6 days. The territory reclaimed is mostly in the northeast around the Kharkiv region, but also Ukraine's military advancing towards Kherson in the south. Ukraine's gains demonstrate a few things, really. The effectiveness of the external support they received, particularly around the use of advanced weapons that's allowed them to kind of go from that defensive to the offensive mode, but also generally, kind of some poor Russian military tactics. Also seeing some reporting that it's likely that Russia actually ordered the withdrawal of its troops from Kharkiv to defend other areas. But there's actually also some reporting of only limited resistance from Russian forces in some areas. Russia's responded to its losses by targeting civilian infrastructure, including power stations and water facilities, with blackouts reported in several regions. Further Russian missile strikes on civilian areas and infrastructure are very likely. We're starting to kind of see the costs of the war in Ukraine, with the World Bank putting the cost of rebuilding about $359 billion or so, and that's more than 1.5 times the country's GDP last year. We'll probably see Ukraine try to capitalize on its advances, and that would kind of start to create a dangerous situation with Putin's potential reaction if Ukraine continues to kind of have successes, but we're probably quite a long way from a Ukrainian battlefield victory. So for us at the moment, we see the prolonged conflict remaining the most likely scenario. And then for our final one this week, talk about the case against former Prime Minister Imran Khan in Pakistan. He's currently on trial for both contempt and terrorism charges. This is related to a speech he made on the 20th of August in which he blamed police and the judge for the torture of one of his aides. If Khan is convicted on any of the charges, he'll be disqualified from standing for office for 5 years. He's saying the trial is politically motivated for that reason. Khan is extremely well supported, and there have been protests related to the trial in Pakistan, and we'll likely see further large-scale protests if he is convicted, with some of these very likely to be violent. This comes against the backdrop of the significant flooding that Pakistan recently experienced that killed more than 1,000 people and caused over $30 billion worth of damage. That's it from us this week. We hope you enjoyed the content, and we hope to see you soon.